Get an idea, write it down, rewrite.
Yes.
Sounds easy, but is it?
No. But it's the truth.
Okay, how come most people struggle with this though?
Why do people struggle? Well, because writing is difficult. I think anyone does. I'd say even John Steinbeck, probably when he was sitting down at his typewriter and, had problems. Charles Dickens and Jane Austen probably all had trouble at some point, even though they had great ideas and great themes that going. Writing is hard, and it's something that we teach people is that it's the one thing that you need the least amount of equipment to do. Okay, I mean, you really just need a pen and piece of paper, but yet it's a lot of up here. First, it's a lot of research. It's a lot of writing to find that right idea. It's a lot of reflection to find out when you do research on a concept that interests you. How does everything connect, and what are the nuances of that? That takes time. That takes a lot of people want to just rush right to the final draft or rush right to the screenplay software and just start going. And that, to me, that leads to disappointment, frustration, and madness, quite frankly.
And not the good kind of madness that you need to be a writer? Okay.
No. And so finding the concept, then understanding it, the nuances of it, and how that can relate to characters, what characters would be in that world, the problems that they face, and the truths about humanity that you're trying to say in these things, takes a while to get it. And then once you can structure that into a 3-act thing or teleplay or whatever it is, you need to let it sit for a while to go back and get some space from it so that you can say, oh, that doesn't work. I didn't quite get that character dialogue correct. Those two characters represent the same thing. I can combine them into one, make it more efficient. There's a better act break I could do there. There's a higher stakes thing there that has more meaning, okay? Or even in the process, there's a script I'm working on right now where, you realize, you find that resource where you realize what you thought about a character or a person or a situation isn't entirely what you thought it was, okay? And it's slightly different. And when that happened to us, we found out I'm writing a biopic right now about a music producer. And he was from the 60s and the 70s. And there were certain things about how he interfaced with the social and political elements of the time, okay? Did he or didn't he at certain points or certain, and we found out we thought he hadn't, but it turns out he had, okay? At a certain point in his career. And now all of a sudden we're like, well, based on what we're saying about this person, the tenets of his life, what he believed in, his philosophies, do we need to include this? Do we not? Does it change anything? Because if it does, it changes things. And it turns out, yes, it did matter. So we have to put that in. And then that might mean backtracking all the way through to the beginning to make sure that the lessons learned from the social justice things that he was involved with would track all the way through his character and be true. And when we went back and looked, we realized, oh, they were there. We were just focused on other things. And in doing so, it made the story deeper and better.
I think you've said that a writer should be honest with how they see the world.
Right.
That honesty and that voice will seep into their writing.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I believe writers need to have a point of view. Filmmakers need to have a point of view. I think probably directors of photography need to have a point of view. Everyone everywhere having a point of view on how you see the world is important, not to just be passive in the world. You need to be active within the world and how you see it. And especially with writers, you're trying, there's no such thing as being, there's no such, you're always subjective when you're writing these things. You're always from what words you choose to what characters you choose, what they say, where you place things, and even you're making decisions. You have a point of view of how you're doing these things, and to fight that, to not have a way of thinking, a way of speaking, I think is disingenuous to being a writer. Your point there is to shine a light on humanity. Your point of what you are meant to say some truths. And even if you're doing comedy, comedy usually comes from truth, does it not? And so if you're being too surfacey, if you're being too cool, okay, you're going to get a very thin, I'm trying to think of the right adjective, a very, not unusable, that's the wrong word, but the script's not going to mean anything. The story's not going to mean anything. It's not going to resonate. That's the word I was trying to look for. It's not going to resonate with audiences in any sort of way. And so I feel that with all those scripts that we said earlier, of the 99% that aren't good, a lot of that might be that people are just trying to be cool. They think of a good situation, but they're not putting their stamp on what does it all mean. Okay, the message of what they're trying to say. What are they exploring? Even if it is a broad comedy, you're exploring something, whether it's The Hangover and you're exploring, that time when you're about to get married and the responsibilities that come from that, and the friendship that comes from people who have known each other for a long time. Even if it's broad and, over the top, it's still there. And that's what underpins those characters. They're still saying something about that, even if, guys getting out of a car and they're impaling mattresses on the top of a casino or whatnot. And so if you're not trying to say something, if you're just trying to do something because it's cool or fun, okay, and you're just staying at that level, you're not really giving a point of view or anything. Or the point of view you're giving is that you don't really care. You're just being passive in the world. And I kind of feel that is the hardest thing that I have to say to my students, especially when, I'm talking to, 18 to 22-year-olds who want to get into the writing or into the film world. They write a lot of derivative things because they don't really have, they might not have a complete world of view yet of who they are. They're just developing that. So they wouldn't be cool if we took Die Hard and put it on a boat. I'm just, saying that sort of thing. Or an Avengers type thing or a Stranger Things type thing, but they would just be their version of it. But it's just special effects and action scenes and cool lines. It doesn't have any meaning underpinning it. And that is the hardest thing that we have to get to and across the writers. I feel that even though they're 18 to 22, I feel often that any new writer, anyone who is entering art on anything, whether it's painting or sculpting or acting or music, if you're not trying to put feeling into it or meaning into the craft, you're going to end up with something flat.
And that being said, though, on the flip side, as you mentioned earlier, a Steven Soderbergh sort of line where you can weave the theme or the message sort of into the story without it being heavy-handed, and I'm butchering that, but yeah. What was it exactly? Because you said, this woman from India, she wrote these great screenplays, but sounds like she didn't beat you over the head with the message.
She did what Steven Spielberg said, that when he wants to get his social themes out, he wants to hide them in a genre. And that's one way to do it is, okay, you want to write a thriller type thing or a comedy or an action picture or even a romantic comedy, and you want to give it some depth. What is the central thing, the problem between the characters or that the lead characters have? and then explore how you can, what all those could be, and figure out how those could be obstacles along the way to create drama and tension. And in doing so, opportunities for comedy or opportunities for thrilling moments, set pieces for action that relate to those obstacles that you've found. But because you're doing it in this sort of, sugar-coated way, maybe, I don't know, that's the right way, a palatable way, the audiences will take the medicine easier that way, I suppose.
Okay, so if we have a spectrum, one side being completely passive, and
Yeah.
and some people, that's their coping mechanism for life,
Sure.
especially recently. Don't want to know, don't want to think about it, don't want to see it. So if you have blinders on, you might not be able to kind of go there, but at the same time, if you're so dialed in, there's going to be too much of an agenda with the film.
That's a very good way of putting it, quite frankly. There is a happy medium that you have to strike between being entertaining but meaning something. And when you can find that sweet spot of marrying, and it's challenging, it's really difficult. I think all writers struggle with that ultimately. Once you can find that sweet spot and then marry it with understanding story theory, right? That's when you can be successful.